Volvo is a brand that has long been obsessed with safety, and that includes this all-new 2016 Volvo XC90. This is the future of the Volvo brand, both inside, outside, and in terms of the safety systems included in this vehicle. All the upcoming Volvos will be based off of what we're seeing in this particular vehicle. This is a Graco Classic Ride 50 child seat, suitable for forward or rearward facing installation, and children between 4 and 50 pounds. The first thing, of course, is to see how well rearward facing child seats fit in this vehicle. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this seat so that my knees are about an inch from the dashboard and the seat's in a relatively upright position. That will give me more room for a rearward facing seat in the back. As you'd expect from any three-row crossover, I do have ample room in the back for a rearward-facing child seat. Now, the XC90 is not going to be as large as several large American three-row crossovers, but we still have adequate room between the front seat and the rearward-facing seat in this position. Volvo's front seats incorporate an anti-whiplash technology to them, and that means that in the event of a rear-end collision, the front seat can articulate a decent amount backwards. So you do want to be sure that you leave at least an inch or two of room between the front seat and the child seat, because you don't want that front seat impacting the child seat in a rear-end collision. Some unique features in this Volvo model are that we get dedicated top tether anchors for a rearward-facing child seat installation. Now, this particular Graco Classic Ride does not support installation in this method, but if your child seat did, you would take this top tether anchor right here and install it on some dedicated loops right there under the front passenger seat or under the driver's seat. Now, the reason you would want to do that is because it keeps your child seat from becoming an infant catapult in the event of an accident. Even though this particular child seat is latched in with the latch anchors, you can see it does move a decent amount because of the way the cushion is designed in any vehicle. Obviously, you want the bottom cushion in a vehicle to be squishy, but that means that your child seat can move a decent amount in that direction even when it's firmly attached in place. The top tether anchor really latches it down and keeps the seat from moving in that manner. Now let's talk forward-facing seats. I had no problem fitting 3 child seats across the back of the XC90, as with any vehicle in this segment, because it is fairly wide. The design of the XC90 allows a decent amount of room between the child seat and the door. That is important because in the event of a side impact collision, you want the side curtain airbag to come down this way on the side of the child seat, not into the child seat. Some very interesting features in the XC90 are that we get height adjustable seat belts for the second row that makes it a little bit more comfortable for smaller stature folks or children to be more comfortable. Also interesting is that we have a 40-20-40 seat back in this second row. Now that in and of itself is not that unusual. What's unusual about this is that these are actually 3 separate seats in the XC90. It's not 2 seats that are partially tied together, which is more common. Most vehicles with 40-20-40 folding seats, the 40 side on one side cannot be folded without the center coming with it, and that's not going on in the XC90. They are 3 completely separate modules, so you can fold any of the 3 without the other ones being affected. They also move forward and backwards without the others being affected, so you can actually move this center section a little bit forward. That means if you have one child, your child will be a little bit closer to you up front, or if you have children that are fighting or looking at each other, you can separate them a little bit more as well. Although the center seat does not feature latch anchors in the XC90, a nice feature is that the shoulder belt is actually attached to the seat itself. It doesn't come out of the ceiling or out of one of the other seat back sides. That means this seat can be moved independently of the other seats when there's a child seat installed. And that does make it a little bit easier to get in the back, because like many 3-row crossovers, you can't really have a child seat in the center seat and fold this seat normally because it would interfere with it. It actually starts to rub on it right there. However, unlike some of those other crossovers, because this center section moves independently of this outboard seat, you can just barely fold this side seat forward. It does rub against that seat, but you can actually get into the third row of the XC90 with this center seat in place. Now that would be a little bit more difficult in many other 3-row crossovers out there. Of course, if you had a narrower seat in the middle, that would be a lot easier. If you had a wider seat, it would be impossible. While we're talking about the third row, you should know that the XC90 does not provide latch anchors or top tether anchors for the third row. That's really telling us that Volvo believes the safest place for your children is right here in the second row, and statistically that bears itself out. Now, I had no problem fitting 2 child seats back here in the third row, but again, there's no top tether anchor back here. Now, with the center child seat unbuckled, you can see what I mean about this center seat. It's actually folded right now, and it folds again independently of the outboard seats. Because the outboard seats are slightly wider than the center section, it doesn't actually rub on this outboard child seat at all. Now again, the seat modules move forward and backward independently of one another, so you can actually move this seat forward or backward. That does get a little bit tricky if you're using the shoulder belt, however, on the outboard seating position like I am there. but it does work with the latch anchors. You should know, unlike the Infiniti QX60, you cannot have a child seat latched in place and move the seat in order to get into the back. It just doesn't articulate enough with the seat locked into place. Another relatively unique Volvo feature is the integrated child booster cushion. Now, if your child fits within the weight parameters and height parameters, and that would be over 33 inches tall and between 33 and 80 pounds heavy, you can use this integrated child booster. This booster raises the child up to be the correct height to interact with the car's built-in seatbelt system. That's why you want to use these booster seats, because if you don't boost the child up, then the seatbelt will hit the child in a strange place across the body, and it would be an awful lot less safe. Now, this of course combines with this seat that can move forward, so that way your toddler can be a little bit closer to the driver. Now, on the downside, of course, that means they're also a little bit more able to kick the center console. As you'd expect from really any three-row crossover, cargo room in the back is a little bit more limited than you'll find in much larger crossovers, or really in two-row crossovers behind the last seat. So if we pop open the back, you'll notice I can fit a 26-inch roller bag, a 24-inch roller bag, and some smaller cargo right on top, but that's about it behind the third row. As with the MDX or the QX60, that means this may be a 7-passenger SUV, but it's not a 7-passenger and 7 passengers worth of cargo SUV. Of course, that also means that if we fold down that third row, we get an incredible amount of cargo space, because you can push those bags all the way in front of there, and you can very easily put 5 people and 5 people's worth of cargo in the back. And of course, because we have that center seat that folds independently of the outboard seats in the middle, you can also put very long IKEA shopping in the back without too much trouble. When you have those rear seats folded, we do have this cargo divider that will pop up and keep your cargo from flying forward if you want to. We have a little elastic strap there to hold things into place, and cargo holders right here for grocery bags, that sort of thing. We also have a little bit of extra storage right here under this load floor. You can see that it is shaped a little bit interestingly. That's because we do have things under this load floor, like the compact spare tire and the air bladders for our air suspension in this vehicle. Also part of that air suspension package are these two buttons right over here on the passenger side of the vehicle. These allow us to raise or lower the back end of the vehicle using that air suspension to help you load cargo a little bit more easily. Now, in case you're wondering, there is just barely enough room to put one child seat in the back and still close this rear hatch. Of course, the rear hatch is powered, or you can close it manually. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this has been the 2016 Volvo XC90. Be sure and check out the full review on this vehicle coming up on my channel in the next day or so. In the meantime, go ahead and like this video, comment on this video, find me over at Facebook and at Twitter, and I'll see you next week.